I am a dark phoenix. All will bow down to me.
So this came for you.
Ah, okay. Interesting. Well, let's see. Looks like it's from Disney. Disney says, we now own you and all of your related characters here within the X-Men series. Well, that kind of means this movie's pointless because it's going to get redone anyway by Disney at this point. But it's Disney, so that means I get to be a Disney princess. Disney princess, Disney princess, Disney princess, Disney princess.
You are not
Disney
a Disney princess.
Disney princess, Disney princess, Disney princess.
This is not what it
Disney
means.
princess, Disney princess, Disney princess.
Oh my god. This episode is sponsored by txcitizen.com, local New Braunfels news that's exclusively online and completely free. If you're looking for a home in New Braunfels or the surrounding areas, Lorna Gentz is the realtor for you. She's got over 16 years experience and numerous accolades to her name. Visit her today at facebook.com/LGentzRealtor. Hello and welcome to another episode of Pop Culture Geekery. I'm Joe Solis, and this is my wife, Sarah Childs, and tonight we're going to be reviewing the movie Dark Phoenix. It has no X-Men in the title at all, so just simply called Dark Phoenix. But it is an X-Men movie. I don't know where to begin with this one, other than to say it's a weird feeling going into this one because it is the last of the X-Men movies under Fox. I can't believe it's been 20 years since these movies started. I know you've only seen like half of them because only what I've shown you, and you probably have no idea what I showed you. Do you remember? You don't remember, do you?
I remember the last one some because they recapped it right before the movie.
So it's going to be interesting perspective because, you know, as much as this film series has had its problems, I have enjoyed it. Sarah, on the other hand, like I said, I did catch her up. I showed her X-Men First Class. I showed her Days of Future Past, and then that was before X-Men Apocalypse came out, but that was 3 years ago. So she slept since then, so she doesn't remember any of that.
That's what I was going to say. I've slept since then. Yeah, I remember, like, before they showed the movie, they did some scenes from the last movie, and there were explosions. I remember the explosions.
Yeah. So she's going to give a perspective of not remembering anything and just seeing how this movie does by itself. So that's going to be interesting to hear what you say. What was that?
Remembering nothing. I said, "Oh, ye of little faith," has the perspective of remembering nothing. Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome. But anyway, so just real quick, this is based on the famous X-Men story, the Dark Phoenix saga. It was very loosely adapted in 2006's X-Men: The Last Stand. It's a shame because it's already been attempted twice by Fox in the last 20 years. And, you know, I just got to say the X-Men are my favorite Marvel characters. So it's been frustrating for the last 20 years to see how these movies hit some things right, but they get a lot of things wrong. And unfortunately, here on their way out, it doesn't change. So I'm just going to start by asking, were you able to follow along, not remembering anything?
Yes, I did follow along quite well, if I do say so myself.
Hey, these are legitimate questions. I mean, you're not the only one out there who doesn't follow these religiously like I do and is going into this just as is. So
Just your opening statement of you saying they got some things wrong and some things right. I'm like, what thing did they get wrong? I don't know what they got wrong. Must be the comic book series, because that's usually what it is when Joe says something's wrong. So, but see, I can use my inferencing skills to figure out what's going on.
yeah.
So yeah, no, I thought it was quite good, actually. I followed along rather well.
Well, that's good to know, because that's the only thing that's going to save this movie if it makes any money before it's done. So,
Yes. Well, luckily, not everyone going to the movie is a critic. Only people like Joe. So as long as the people aren't as old as Joe, they should be fine. We'll enjoy it.
yeah. So, the X-Men movies have been kind of split into two different decades. Like, there was the first 10 years that starred the original actors playing, some of these characters. Then, we had X-Men First Class, which kind of did a soft reboot. It took us back to see them all young, which some of them you saw in here. And there was some crossover with the older actors kind of passing the torch a little bit in Days of Future Past. Since then, though, we have gotten, the last Wolverine movie, which was Logan, which it's hard to see anything after that, because in my mind, even though it doesn't fit perfectly, but none of these movies fit perfectly, to me that was a good end to this series, and it still is. You could still just watch Logan after all of these and consider it an ending of sorts. Do you remember Logan? Maybe that's a good question.
I remember that he had the hands that were like swords, and they went.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Great description. That's how they went and pitched this movie. They're like, we have a guy who has swords in his hands, and he's going to go like that.
All you need. That's all you need. His name was Wolverine.
Yes. But some of these characters in the younger roles have had more movies under their belts than the other ones that are in here. So, for example, the actors that played Professor X, Magneto, Beast, and Mystique, they've all had 4 movies. So we've had more time to get to know them. I've actually liked all of them in their roles. The weakest one might have been Beast, but that's probably not fair to him, because he's seems to be written as a background character anyway. And of course, Mystique is played by Jennifer Lawrence, so she's never been in the background. And James McAvoy's Professor X has always been awesome. My favorite out of this little group here is Magneto. I love that actor's portrayal of Magneto. He's just so brutal and ruthless. We even get to see some of that here at in this movie. What did you think? I'm just going to focus on just these, and I'll move on to the next one, because I know one of your favorites is in my next one. So, what did you think of the portrayal of those characters?
Well, let's see. Out of those, I'd have to say that Professor X is really my favorite concentration out of those, especially in this movie. And I'm not too sure on how to expand on that more with the non-spoiler review.
Oh, yeah.
But I do have knowledge. I do remember some things about them, so that's good. I remember things. Mm-hmm.
Well, I know one of your favorites is Quicksilver. So he's been in 3 of the last movies, so we've had a good enough time to see him. Although I feel like he does get a little shortchanged here. He has some pretty good scenes at the beginning of the movie, but then he kind of gets brushed aside, unfortunately. Yeah. But I know he's still one of your favorites, right?
Yes. I enjoyed seeing Quicksilver go. That's what he does. But I enjoy him in this series mostly because he's alive.
Yeah, and not like the other one.
Yeah, that was very depressing for me. And the other separate series that is not related to this series, where they decide to have 2 different Quicksilvers because they want to explode my brain. Yeah. But someday maybe some of this will make sense. But right now, it's just what it is.
Yeah, and the last group, and obviously I'm not going to hit every single character, so there are some that I'm not mentioning, but But the other group that I want to talk about is the younger cast that portrays Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm, and Nightcrawler, who we just got introduced to in the last movie. So we've only had 2 movies with them. So it's a weird stacking the way that I just described, because like I found myself being more interested in the characters that I've been with longer than the newer ones, even though I do like the newer ones, but obviously their time in this series was cut short because of the Disney purchase. So anything to say about the newer cast?
Well, I think that it's a good expression of my memory of when Phoenix comes on, and I'm like, is that Sansa? So I don't remember from last time we watched. He's like, yes, dear. Yes, that's Sansa. Oh, okay. Oh, I remember now. Yeah. So yeah, no, I like the new younger characters, and when I started watching, it started coming back to me. Like, oh yeah, that's the older generation. This is the younger generation. I remember this. And, yeah. So, but I mean, again, non-spoilers, so I can't expand a whole lot, but I did enjoy how the characters were presented.
Yeah, because for me, these characters are classic. I mean, I know them all like the back of my hand. I mean, I can't wait until they get better treatment.
I did have something I wanted to say. This is something you may have not noticed, but I noticed that in the movie they refer to them by their real names a lot this time. They didn't use their character names very much at all. So if you don't know their character names, you just will continue not to know their character names, except if you figure it out from Joe talking, which you may or may not.
Well, there will be pictures after this. So yeah. But no, and I guess that's just part of they're trying to be natural about it. They've obviously known each other for a while. And that's actually one thing that they portray in this movie that I kind of questioned, because as you saw, this is not a spoiler. Apparently the X-Men are like known and liked in this world now, which totally is opposite of how they've always been treated, because they've always been the outcasts, on the run, living underground, to some extent. So that I didn't really like that too much, because that's not who they are. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that was pretty obvious how they were being portrayed at the beginning, the crowds cheering and all that stuff.
I mean, they explain it in the movie too. They even explain how they were treated in the past in the movie. So people that have brain lapse like me, we're still okay. But yeah, I actually liked that. I think that was meant to, I mean, there's a lot of like different kind of themes going on in this movie, but one of the ones is that, like, that one is, this is who we want to be. Like, they were talking about, this is who we want to be. Like, the whole time, this is who we want to be. At least some of them wanted to be. I can't really go into detail, but, but I think it's part of that. Like, they've been striving for the public to accept them, and now there's that feeling of acceptance at the beginning of this movie. And I also, as far as using the names of the actors, or that names of the characters goes, my theory was that they used the personal names more because it's more of a personal story in this one. I feel like they were really concentrating on the emotional aspects of the characters and the character development a lot. So maybe in theory, that's why they were using their real names more, because there's a lot more backstory. There's a lot more, emotional interactions between the characters than this is my superhero. This is, who I am.
Yeah, and kind of like you said, there was some conflict about, is this how we should be? Should we be celebrities, or should we just be doing what's right? And, one thing that they kind of touch on in the trailer, you see in the trailer, Mystique and Xavier kind of going at it a little bit, disagreeing on their points of view about all this. And they actually start portraying Professor Xavier kind of as a jerk, which is not uncommon in the comics, but every time it's happened in the comics, people are a little off-put by it, because it's it's not who he is, but he has made his mistake. So, that I don't know how I felt about that either, because especially, obviously James McAvoy is the younger Charles Xavier. So he's still, even in First Class, they showed him to be a little more arrogant as compared to the older Charles Xavier, who was portrayed by Patrick Stewart, had this more warm, soft, fatherly figure, So what did you think about Xavier being portrayed kind of as a jerk?
I think that you need to look deeper into it to see, on the surface, maybe they were saying other people were or interpreting him as being a jerk. But then they further on, they explain kind of his motives, and you can always see that his motives come of a place of looking at the bigger picture, protecting the whole group, protecting individuals. So throughout the movie, they do a good job of explaining and putting that together, even though they were like, oh, look at him, he's being a jerk. And they're like, okay, well, maybe he's not actually being a jerk because they just were unable to see these motivations that he has. And I mean, you could also say that as a younger self, maybe he's making more mistakes, that later on he doesn't make so many mistakes because that's just humility in itself, making mistakes and learning from them. So,
yeah. So, that's pretty much where they go with the main characters, both heroes and former villains, But we do, I know there was a big deal in following this movie of the actress Jessica Chastain, what character was she going to play? And she plays a character. I can't really go into what she plays. It's not, right. It's a spoiler, but it's not. Yeah. So,
it does stuff.
Yeah, but she's a very weak villain is all I was going to say. I don't think it's a spoiler to say she has henchmen. I could have cared less about the henchmen. Yeah. So, I think that was part of the issues with the movie with me is that, the parts with the X-Men and focusing on Jean Grey and her struggle with the Dark Phoenix power, then all of a sudden they try to throw this villain in there that I don't care about. So what did you think about that villain?
I think that the villain was not a big part of the movie. It came in and I saw why it was there, and it provided a lot for the end of the movie. But then you're looking at the different conflicts that are going on in this movie, and most of the conflict of the movie was man versus self. So that's the explanation for why the bad guys kind of thought, oh, we got to have a bad guy, we got to throw one in there. So that's the man versus man, and it's connected to the man versus self in an indirect way, but which I cannot explain at this time. But I felt like the focus of the movie being on the man versus self strengthened the movie a lot. But the part with the man versus man part maybe wasn't so strong, but it provided a good resolution for the movie at the same time, and it made sense with the storyline.
Yeah. I just kind of wish that this had come out before the Disney deal. I think I might have had a different view of it, because I already got, like you said in the opening skit, it's pointless at this point because we don't have anywhere else to go. I mean, there's even an unnecessary tease at the end. It could go either way, but obviously you're gonna see it because we're not gonna spoil it. But and there's no end credit scene, by the way, so you don't have to sit there. But yeah, I was just going into this thinking, okay, I already have my ending to the Fox X-Men universe, which is Logan. I just wanted to see, does this fit in the other movies? And the answer is kind of. So, but that's the answer to all the X-Men movies. Do they run well with each other? Kind of. Some of them better than others.
Better if they were closer together? Yes. Especially better for people like me.
Yeah, with 3 years, I mean, that's not too much for big franchises. Come on, and this one,
you got lots of money. Crank it out a little bit faster.
Well, that's actually a thing. This was supposed to be out was it February? it was either this February or last February. I just remember it was supposed to be around Valentine's Day. I thought it was weird, but it kept getting delayed, and they were supposed to film a new ending because there's a lot of conflicting reports, but supposedly they had filmed an ending that's very similar to another superhero movie, which they haven't revealed yet because they didn't want to spoil anything. But
you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of a certain video game series that a certain someone waited about 10 years for the next game to come out. I'm not going to mention any names or anything, but they eventually it happened.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. I mean, basically put a bow on this series. It's done. They're going to release a big box set. You get to see the Fox fanfare at the beginning probably for one of the last times, unless Disney decides to keep it for nostalgia. But other than that, I just look forward to. I know we're not going to get any of these characters in the next Marvel phase, but maybe the one after that. So I am excited to see what they do because I really do love these characters. These are my favorite Marvel characters, and I'm just so ready for them to be treated right. So
I think that in the overall picture of everything, Disney taking over them is a good thing because they can be added into all of that movie series that is doing really well and has been following up on making consistent movies. And, we can kind of trust them to do good things with the characters. On another note, the unnecessary tease you mentioned at the end, I have no idea what Joe's talking about. I just wanted to let everybody know this might be a comic book thing. I'm not sure.
It's literally the last scene. Like, the two characters look up and see something.
I can't remember, so it must have not been very memorable. So
this was literally about an hour and a half ago, folks. And this is why I question her memory.
I only remember important things.
What?
We're going to debate about this after the show because we can't say what it is.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's just go and give our ratings. I really wanted to give almost a sympathy vote and give it, a 6 out of 10, but I just,
oh my God, just 6 out of 10. That's so great, Joe.
But I just got to give it the 5 out of 10 because it's just average. It is what it is.
Joe's conversion chart means that's average.
It's just, at this point, if I watch it again, fine. If not, I'm okay with that too. I've seen every X-Men movie at this point, good, bad, and the ugly. So I'm just gonna hang on to my happy memories.
Is this the good, the bad, and the ugly, Joe?
It wasn't ugly, so
that's good.
But that's all I'll say.
Not sure if it's good or bad, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what was your rating?
I was gonna say an 80%. Look at that face. Look at that face he's giving me, everybody. I actually really enjoyed it. Maybe that's because I have less comic book knowledge than Joe. So, or I'm younger. I don't know, it could always be that too. We're not sure.
So all in all, like I said, it's a decent movie. It's just okay. I mean, if you're a fan of the series, it's definitely worth a watch. Other than that, I don't really have much else to say about it. But just want to say thank you to all of you who have subscribed so far. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. If you like this video, hit like below. Follow us on all our social media, which I have in all the links below. And we will continue to bring you guys all the summer movies that are up and coming. And we will see you guys next time.